Feeling sluggish after 40? Let's unlock your fitness potential by understanding insulin sensitivity. Hey, I'm Mike.
And I'm Twain.
Welcome to another episode of 40 Plus Fit, the podcast where we unpack the science of sustainable weight loss for those over 40.
Okay.
All right, so welcome to another episode. Today we're tackling a topic that's especially important for folks over 40. This is insulin sensitivity and how it plays a role in fitness.
That is a very tricky topic. I think a lot of confusion abounds from it, right? You have a lot of people, it seems like on social media, when I scroll through social media, anything to do with nutrition, people always going on and on about like, don't eat sugar, it's going to spike your insulin, or people wearing, what's that, the blood sugar glucose monitoring device, just to kind of monitor their blood sugar. And these are perfectly healthy people. These are not people with like actual diabetes or anything. So I think there's a lot of confusion on insulin. Is getting a lot of attention. And I hope this episode really helps, people kind of understand exactly the role insulin plays and what insulin sensitivity is.
Yeah. So I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but let me give you my insight of what insulin is, right?
Yeah.
So if we imagine like our body cells are like tiny houses, right? So they need the energy to function. And that energy comes from sugar, or basically the glucose in our bloodstream. So insulin then is like the key that unlocks the doors of these houses. So the hormone that's produced by your pancreas, an organ behind the stomach. So when we eat things like, I suppose, especially things like carbohydrates, the level of sugar in the blood goes up. And then this signals your pancreas to release some insulin. All right. So then insulin attaches to the receptors on the cell doors, and this unlocks the door and allows the sugar to enter the cells. Once inside, then the cells can use the sugar for the energy. Was that about right?
Yeah, you pretty much like that's spot on.
All right.
I think you explained it really well. So I'll take my leave right now.
All right. So the other benefit is obviously the insulin is what helps keep your blood sugar levels in a healthy range, right?
Yeah, it helps to manage the blood sugar level. So I think that kind of answers one of the or it kind of puts into perspective how how faulty the logic is for people to actually monitor their blood sugar, especially after they eat. Because I hear that a lot with some friends who right now, kind of like some of them are trying out this whole blood glucose monitoring thing.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, they say, oh no, my blood sugar is spiking after this meal. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what it's supposed to do. Like if it was not spiking, I would be worried, man. Because your body's not functioning as it should. And so blood sugar spiking, insulin spiking and blood sugar going up and insulin going up to kind of help clear that is not an issue at all. It's the way the body functions. In fact, the issue for most people that actually have dysfunctional insulin production, i.e. those with actual diabetic issues, type 1 diabetics who cannot produce insulin at all, the issue is that they cannot lower their blood sugar at all because the insulin doesn't spike, right? It's not produced. And so they have to actually inject it exogenously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
So if your
obviously.
blood sugar is spiking after your meal and you're monitoring that, right? Like, and it goes up, yeah, you're good. All's good, man. That's the way it works.
So what about, is there a connection between the insulin sensitivity and your energy levels? Because like some people always say, if I eat white rice,
Yeah.
my glucose or whatever, my insulin spikes, and then I feel lethargic after eating.
Yeah.
What's the connection there?
I think in order to answer that question, the first thing we have to understand is what exactly is insulin sensitivity, right? And that's basically how effectively does your body cells actually respond to insulin. So, you were talking earlier about how insulin unlocks the doors, allows the nutrients into the houses, so to speak, the cells. And so if you have very like low insulin sensitivity, your cells are very slow to respond to this. So it takes up a lot of energy to kind of go through that function, so to speak, right? And then because the blood glucose itself stays in your bloodstream longer, but the cells themselves don't receive the energy, right? You get this very delayed effect. And so, so it just kind of like pushes the pancreas to try to produce even more insulin, and, it kind of stresses it out a little bit more. and then you kind of get this energy issue, okay? Because what you want to do and like, why do we get energy from the food that we eat is because our cells can actually uptake the glucose really quickly. And so if you have low insulin sensitivity, basically you can't get this energy in quick to the cells. Yeah. So insulin sensitivity basically is just how quickly do your cells respond to soaking up the nutrients. Yeah. And so if you have high insulin sensitivity, you generally will feel it because you will eat, let's say you'll be able to eat something and you probably get like you feel relatively energetic from that, rather than you feel like a huge crash. Obviously, there's some other elements there that are also at play. This thing called postprandial somnolence is one of the big ones, which is like if you overeat too much, you eat like a massive meal, then it just has a much higher digestive load on your stomach, which then draws a lot of blood away, and then that kind of makes you feel sleepier. Yeah, so there's some other factors here to consider. It's not all about insulin sensitivity itself. Yeah. But generally that's the lowdown on insulin sensitivity and energy levels, and how they kind of impact each other. It's just the speed at which the cells uptake the insulin, uptake the actual glucose to convert it into usable energy for your body.
Okay. So, like this one, you can probably also correct me if I'm wrong, but as we age, one of the things that we get to, I don't know if you can call it enjoy, but one of the downsides we can say is that our bodies actually become less responsive to insulin as we age, meaning that our cells don't take up the sugar from the bloodstream as efficiently as what they used to. So if we
Yes.
go back to our analogy, it's like the locks on the cell doors become a little rusty or stiff, making it harder for the key, which is the insulin, to unlock them and let the sugar in for energy. So
Yeah.
what
That's
what I read
honestly,
up.
man, like these are really great analogies you're giving, to be honest.
So what I read up is there were because I tried to, for the first time, tried to do a bit of research because I wasn't that clued up on this whole insulin topic. So I read up, and there were like I mean there were many reasons, but three spoke out to me, and one of them is muscle loss. Because
Yep.
as we get older, we go through sarcopenia. That means we're actually losing the muscles. When we go back to the analogy, it's like because the muscle is getting smaller and we're losing muscle mass, it's like having fewer houses available to take in the sugar. And then the next point was cellular changes. So with age, the way our cells function can also change. They become less efficient at processing insulin signals. And the last one was inflammation. So like if we're starting to have chronic low-grade inflammation, that also starts to play a part. Would you agree with all of these, or would you add any to those?
Okay. I think the first one about muscle loss is probably the biggest one. And definitely 100% you agree with that. Maybe the other ones, like the cellular function itself, that may be more related to metabolic slowdown that comes with age. However, I must caveat that and say the metabolic slowdown that comes with age only happens like after 60. So the cells don't slow down until you really reach like maybe around 60 years old or so. Yeah. So that one's probably not that huge of a factor in that sense. Unless you're way past 60 at the moment and you don't exercise at all, right? And you've lost like a ton of muscle. Then the other one there about inflammation, I think that one's kind of like if we zoom out a bit more, it's broadly related to lifestyle factors. Because if we talk about global inflammation in the body, that's kind of just the general rate at which our body is having a lot of stress, because inflammation in that sense is a byproduct of all the stress factors that our body undergoes. Yeah. So maybe I think the biggest one, but the biggest one I want to focus on is the muscle loss component first and foremost, mainly because this is actually the one thing that really helps impact insulin sensitivity, believe it or not. It's not even just having muscle, okay, but it's also just even the act of like weight training itself it almost acts as a partial proxy for insulin. In fact, in diabetic research, right, they're actually prescribing a lot of type 1 diabetics You know, we're not talking about lifestyle diabetics here or type 2 where, you know, they just like didn't take care of themselves, accumulated a lot of excess fat, and then end up with, you know, this kind of diabetic condition. But we're talking about type 1 diabetics, pancreas can't produce insulin properly, and they're having this issue for life. And they actually start to prescribe a lot of these people weight training.
Oh.
Because what happens when you weight train is that there are certain cellular functions within the muscle cells that kind of help open the door without the need for insulin to come in and unlock it, so to speak. So that reduces the insulin requirement while helping with offload that workload of you know, taking uptake of the glucose into the cells. So weight training, super important. Even general exercise like going to run and stuff like this has a mild muscular effect and stimulus as well that can be very useful. In fact, post meals, if you just go for like 5 or 10 minute walk, right? Even that can help to regulate and really improve some of that energy uptake already into the cells. So it kind of reduces the stress on your pancreas if you think about it that way. Yeah, these are actual very actionable things that people can do. Then with relation to like we talked about the actual muscle loss itself, like the sarcopenic component. Look, this is easily like a lot of times when we talk about sarcopenia, we're talking about and we're talking about like situations where it's very, very intense, where people have a lot of muscle loss. It just generally comes from people who do not exercise at all, who are completely sedentary. So if you are at least exercising once, twice a week, right, you're already reducing that sarcopenic risk and magnitude by quite a significant amount. And if you are somebody that's like into bodybuilding or whatever, or you're doing a lot of sports, you're very active and you are training with weights, you know, 3 times a week, something like this, you probably don't have to worry too much about age-related muscle loss because you've already slowed it down, you know, pretty much to the lowest rate of muscle loss that you will experience already.
So just general sport, like you're saying there's just general sports, so not actually focusing on resistance training, but let's say I play football 3 times a week. Would that also be seeing the benefits here of sustaining the muscle mass, and then seeing how it plays in with the
Yeah, I would say for general purpose and function, it probably will. But age will still do its number on you in that sense. Because you still need a baseline level of strength, right? So like playing football will only keep you as strong as the amount of strength required to play football will. So if you're not doing any resistance training that gives you you know, that stimulates your body to have more strength than that, then you're kind of losing out on that element. So probably you might still want to do some sort of resistance training. It doesn't have to, again, it doesn't have to be long bodybuilder style workouts or huge ass powerlifting workouts. You know, like that's just not what we're talking about here. We're talking about like going to the gym, you know, using a little bit more weight than your body weight, right? And you're just like doing like basic movements, the big movements, right? Just doing some squatting, some sort of squatting, doing some sort of, you know, pushing. It might be a bench press, might be an overhead press, might be some sort of do just pull-ups. You can do rolls, you know, and those will be enough. Those will be enough to kind of preserve whatever muscle mass you have.
Okay, because usually, you know, whenever you talk about these kind of resistance training, the first thing people always go to is the bodybuilding, and it's like, oh, I'm not really one. I don't like going to the gym. I don't like working out with weights. I find that very boring. Those kind of things. So, how do you overcome that, and what kind of exercises would you recommend to these kind of people if you're looking to still maintain and sustain muscle mass after the age of 40?
Yeah, I would say there are 2 ways you can approach it. Honestly, the first thing would be just do bodyweight stuff. Because if you do bodyweight stuff and you get really good at it, it's honestly a very decent level of baseline strength that keeps you, you know, that keeps you functional. Will you build like huge muscles and all that? Not very likely. But again, look, like if you don't really like weight training and all of that in the first place, you're probably not somebody that wants to be very big anyway. You know, so bodyweight stuff is going to be pretty easy for you to do, and you already you already kind of cover that baseline functional element. And most people, like, look, if you can maintain that as you age, right, you're going to preserve a decent amount of muscle mass. You're going to keep pretty lean, and you're still going to look good, man. So bodyweight stuff is great. I think the other way to approach it would be to also find activities that require a higher level of resistance, a higher level of strength when you do them, right? So your body actually undergoes a certain level of resistance. So let me give you an example. For women, this can be something like pole dancing,
Pole dancing.
because pole dancing yeah, because pole dancing is a tremendously physical sport in and of itself. So I mean, I'm not sure if like people would consider it a sport. I think they have pole sports where people actually do all these kind of stunts and stuff on it. And look, it's just such a demanding activity. You need tremendous upper body strength. You need ridiculous core strength. It's almost like a circus acrobat kind of
Yeah.
level of athleticism. So something like this, right? If not that, for obviously I mentioned that just because for the ladies that are listening to this might be something that you might want to try, right?
Oh, I don't think this
But
is
there's
only
also
for the
like a
ladies,
bit more
right?
general. Sorry?
I don't think this is only for the ladies.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm sure that guys that yeah. No, I just suggested that because like that was the first thing I thought
Yeah.
about when I was trying to think of something for ladies. But something a bit more general would be like rock climbing as well. So these would be easy things that you can do. And easy activities that you can do that will, in a way, preserve a lot of the muscle that you have.
Right. If I can ask, like living
Yeah.
in Asia, right? You have like these I'm not sure what the actual term is for them, but in our one that we have, it's called like the Tai Chi fitness garden in a way. So they have all these little machines, outdoor machines. One is like a rower walker where you can, you put your feet on these two things
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you swing your legs like that.
Yeah.
Then there's another one that's got
Yeah.
like these two wheels that you make circular motions on these wheels. And then they've
Mm.
got like
Yeah.
the pull-up bar and then like a body weight rowing machine and all these kind of things. Would these be good enough for
Yeah.
the average Joe, or would one still actually need to go and head to the gym?
I think it really depends, like, what is the ultimate goal, right? And also kind of where your starting point is. I would say that a lot of these equipment, if they were if because there's a few varieties of this equipment. So like the one you mentioned where like there's a circular wheel and there's a lot of these things where there's no real resistance to it, right? You step on the two pedals and you're just like
Yeah.
swinging your legs, things like this. I think a lot of those are put there for senior citizens to get some movement in. Like literally that's it. Okay. For somebody that's relatively like you're functionally healthy, you have a decent baseline level of strength. Like, will that be good enough for you? Probably not, just because it's not very going to be very challenging for you. But they have another sequence of machines I know where they have some level of resistance to it. So like you said, there's this one where you sit on it and you kind of pull the two handles to you, but it's kind of using your body weight to pull you
Yep.
towards it, right? So there's some sort of resistance there. Maybe for somebody just basic beginner level, you're just starting out, yeah, you probably can make some decent strength progress on that. But it will run out really quickly because these things are not designed to help you overload yourself, very much. And that means that you're going to get only as strong as, let's say, your body weight is, and only up to a particular point, which is not going to be very high. So you're still going to get decently strong. You're still going to keep relatively healthy. If that's what you want, then that's totally fine. But I don't think it's very efficient. The next level up, and I think this would be where most general people should kind of aim towards, would just be the body weight stuff. So if you have a pull-up bar, being able to do a pull-up, being able to do multiple pull-ups in a row, probably is a skill and a level of strength that you want. Because if you think about it from a functional point of view, let's say if you were, I mean, for whatever reason, you found yourself hiking and you fell over a cliff and you were hanging on to the side, right? Imagine if you couldn't pull yourself up. Like,
Okay.
that's it, you're gone, right? Like, so at the very baseline level, you do need a certain level of strength where you can actually pull yourself over things. I think that's important. You also need to be able to push yourself off things, right? Like, so being able to do push-ups, being able to do pull-ups, multiple reps of these things, I think that is the basic, for me, that's the basic level most people should be at.
Okay. So if we pull it back,
Just
because
for
you said like
functional part
depends on, you said like depends on the goal, right? So if we pull it back
depends on the
to
goal.
exercise that benefit insulin sensitivity,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
if
how
we're
would
talking
these
about,
play a part there? Would they help, or is there like you know, as you said, if you're starting from zero,
yeah,
maybe this will help you until say level 2, and level
yeah.
2, then it's not going to stimulate the muscle fibers enough anymore because you've grown stronger. So you probably need to go and do something else. Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yeah, essentially that. But look, if you're talking purely about insulin sensitivity, even the level 1 stuff where you're holding the circles, you're just moving the circles around, or you're
Yeah.
just swinging your legs and all, like that already has some muscular stress that can help already with just glucose uptake into the cells.
Okay.
Is it going to be a fantastic amount? Probably not. But look, it's better than nothing. It really is better than nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about activities like swimming?
Mm-hmm.
How would that, again, looking at exercise that benefit insulin sensitivity, would swimming be a great option for people to consider?
Yeah, 100%. Because mainly because swimming has a certain level of resistance component to it, just because of the water you're fighting against, right? And then for those people, especially if you're overweight, to be honest, like swimming is great because it reduces joint stress as well, while giving you a resistance profile when you're doing the activity that works on the muscles, So like it's kind of a win-win in both situations.
Mm.
So if you can, go swimming and all, that'll be great. I do think from my experience dealing with people who are overweight, who don't swim, a large portion of that probably is due to like body confidence stuff. Um, but hey, you know what? Like if you are trying to better yourself, like it really doesn't matter. If somebody's going to laugh at you for trying to better yourself or whatever it is, right? Then that's on them, man. It's not on you.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think if we're looking at that, we're looking at walking after meals. If
Mm,
I can sum up, you can see if you can add or if I'm missing something. So it's a
yep.
walking after meals. That's one of the exercises that we can focus on for this particular goal of exercises that benefit insulin sensitivity. Obviously, strength training, that's the big one. If you can do that, go for it as much as you possibly can. If you cannot do just the main strength training, try to do body weight exercises.
Yep.
So like the body weight squats, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, all of those. Um, Otherwise, you can do swimming. You said is a
Yep.
fantastic one. Um, is there anything else, or does that pretty much cover?
I think that pretty much covers it. Like basically, if you can be active, like that's the one thing that really helps with insulin sensitivity at that first level already. So anything that allows you to be active, even if it means just going out and doing long walks, clocking 15,000 steps, 20,000 steps, whatever it is, like these things will help already. So that's a really cool part. And then the other stuff, like the type of activity, kind of correlates more with the muscle building component, which if you think about it for long term insulin management and stuff, that's kind of where that purpose is. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I think this also what we usually say in these kind of scenarios, and I think it applies in this instance as well, is for those that are just starting out, probably your most important part about exercise is consistency. It's not a
Yes.
case of let's go exercise today, and then it's like, oh, my legs are stiff, so I don't exercise for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Uh, and so on and so on. So the best is always I find is to start at the level that you're at, and then be consistent and slowly, gradually increase your intensity.
100%.
But with that said, perhaps we can also you can offer some practical tips, for people that are looking to get started. So let's take 3 scenarios here. One,
Okay.
a person has not exercised and has obviously, let's say, put on some weight. 2,
Mm.
person has exercised before and has now been out of action for, say, 15 years and is looking to get back into things. And 3 is a person who's just gotten bad news from the doctor that their sugar has gotten to a terrible level and now they have to get into this new area of exercise. What are the tips that you would say for these people just for getting started on a fitness routine?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the thing is finding the easiest exercise or activity to do, that they don't hate so much, probably will help. And honestly, like the lowest hanging fruit is just like how many steps are you doing a day? You know, going out and clocking that is probably going to be very useful. And the main reason why I say that is because most of the time when people come to me about exercise, they're not really excited to exercise in the first place. You could always hire a PT. I would recommend that. So someone to show you the ropes, show you basic movement and help you move better,
Yeah.
right? And then you can actually translate some of that learnings into doing actual resistance style exercises, body weight exercises. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to go on your own, just just start with the step count. You know, if you're clocking like 3,000 steps a day or something, right? Bump it up to five, right? And then after you do 1 week of doing five, add another thousand, add another 1,005. Like it's up to you how much you want to add the progression. I always recommend just add another extra, 1,000 uh every increment that you want to make. So 1 week you do 5,000 first. Okay, cool. And then you go to 6,000 next week, seven, eight, nine, and then you slowly build it up. And then probably once you're around like 10,000 or so, you probably will already see a pretty significant change in both how you feel and maybe even like how your clothes fit. Even the weighing scale might start to reflect some of that as well. Yeah, so I think this is really, and we're talking purely about the exercise part, we haven't even touched on nutritional components yet,
Yeah,
but
we'll
purely
get to
exercise,
that.
like, yeah, yeah. So this exercise part here, I think this is what you might want to focus on. Yeah, so just count, like clock your steps in and do that. Um, the alternative to that would be, let's say if you want to do like more cardio sessions, because that might be a little bit more accessible for people. Maybe you have a cardio machine at home. Maybe you want to go to a gym, but you're a bit intimidated by the machines and you don't really want to hire like a PT or anything at the moment, right? Then use the cardio machines, right? And if you do a cardio session, what you want to do on that is just to most cardio machines will have like a calorie counter of how much you've burnt. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to use that not so much as an indication of how many calories you burn, but as a way to track what's your intensity and your benchmark level of performance for that cardio session. So I
Mm,
give you an example. Let's say you're using the elliptical. The elliptical has like a resistance level you can put up on it. Okay, different machines will have different levels. Some might have 20, some might have 15 only, some might have 10 only, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But you start at, let's say, level one, and then you say you go for 30 minutes. Okay. See how much calories you clock in at 30 minutes. All right. And then from there, you can say, okay, the next session, maybe this session felt really easy on level one resistance. I'll put it up to level two and let me try again. And then you check the amount of calories you burn. Like if it goes up a bit more, okay, then you know your intensity for that session has improved. And you just go so on so forth, add a little bit more resistance or push a little bit harder, try to get your RPM up
mm.
on the machine. And then that will also drive up the calorie count because the machines calculate all these based upon all those variables that are inputted. So
Yeah.
it acts as a really good proxy for like whether you're improving or not. But it's not accurate in telling you exactly how many calories you're burning. Okay, so don't be obsessed with that. Yeah, just use it as a way to track whether your intensity is there or not. Yeah. And that's a good way to do it. So you do that like 30 minutes a day, or even, yeah, just like 30 minutes a day or like 30 minutes 4 times a week, let's say, for example. And just make sure your step count the rest of the week is kept the same. I think that's another way to go about it if you want to use like a cardio machine. Yeah, I think that's like the easiest hanging fruit so far. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah. Well, that's actually a very good point that you brought up there to look to measure your intensity by the calories burned, by the feedback that's been given by the machine. Because
Yeah.
I have not been doing that. What I did is I looked at I give myself a amount of kilometers that I run, and then I see the time that I run that in, and then
Okay.
after that I'll go and I'll look at what's my heart rate range. So it's like a
Mm.
very complicated way. I never thought of actually just looking at the calories burned. So,
I mean, that's not a wrong way to do it as well. I think that's great because you're trying to monitor like how much effort it takes you to do this same task, right? And if it gets easier, so it requires less effort from you to do the same task, it means you're definitely improving and adapting and getting stronger.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
Then
it's a very
you make a
long-winded
point.
way of doing it.
Well, I
Could have
mean, like
just
heart
like
rate zone training, it's effective enough for us to depend on it. Yeah.
okay.
But just keep it simple, like keep it
Yeah.
simple. Um,
The yeah.
mm,
The other thing that I also added in quite a while ago, I'm not doing it so much anymore because now I also head to the gym.
yeah,
But I brought in the element of the body weight exercise.
yeah.
And I didn't go full out like, okay, we must do so many sets of this and so many of that and that. What I actually did is I brought in the incremental squat. So what do I mean by incremental squat? Is today I do one body weight squat. That's it. All right.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I do two body weight squats. The day after that I do three, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like so silly, like who does one body weight squat? How rubbish is that? So if you can start higher, fantastic, you start higher. If your entry point is at 10 or 20, okay, you start there. But build gradually and you just add that one extra body weight. It's not three sets of one body weight squat, it's just one body weight squat,
Yeah.
just to get back into this whole swing of things. And you work your way up. So by the end of a year, you're actually doing 365 body weight squats. Now, that's not really practical anymore. By that time, you've probably gotten the bug has bit you, and you're probably heading into the gym and you're doing some workouts there
Yeah.
because you've gotten stronger. Usually, that happens about the 100 to 120, I find. But
Mm,
it's just getting back into that motion of doing this. And you'll actually, by doing that, after a while, when you're doing 50 bodyweight squats a day, 50 plus bodyweight squats a day, you will start to also see a difference.
yeah. Yeah.
There'll be the difference. Your conditioning even comes into play. At least for me, I find when you're doing like 50 to 60 bodyweight squats in one session, you can already start seeing, oh, okay, but my breath is a bit going out of breath here a bit, and you work your way through that way. So that's just added to, as you're saying, the low hanging fruits. It's not something that's sustainable for long term, but it's a
Yeah.
low hanging fruit that you can actually start and implement in your daily days.
Yeah.
But I
I
mean,
think,
all these things we always need to just preface and just say is like before you start any exercise program, it's always good to just consult with a doctor and ensure that you, you're okay to take on whatever exercise that you're looking to do.
yeah, I mean, I mean the disclaimer is always important for liability, right? Like,
Yeah,
remember, if you're trying anything, it's always at your own risk. But look, like at the end of the day, the body is so resilient. It will adapt, it will get stronger. I think it's worth mentioning though that even though we gave a lot of like low-hanging fruit, very easy entry point kind of things to do, not everybody actually responds well to that. And to be honest, I think sometimes just getting somebody to show you the ropes and get you started can really help,
yeah,
let's say if let's say you don't want to hire a PT, right? You might hire like an online coach, like we offer online programs, that kind of thing. You might still hire a fitness coach as well, somebody to give you a plan and say, hey, do these things, hold you accountable. And obviously we talked about this before, and in terms of like fitness and accountability in groups, right? That we did one episode on that as well. So you can look back on this. Do you remember what episode it was, Mike?
give me a sec. I will try and tell you.
Yeah. So while we're searching for that, I mean the main thing is this, right? Like the reason why I'm saying this is because at the start, especially if you are not in the best of physical states at the start, right? Oh sorry, yeah. So it's Mike says is what, episode 5?
Episode 5,
Episode
social
5,
support
yeah.
and accountability.
Yeah, so social support and accountability. Like when you are starting out, doing small little things like this can oftentimes feel like a waste of time. And as much as we can tell you, hey, like these things will add up, it's only when you experience it that you get more reaffirmed of it. But you need to actually do it long enough to be able to experience it. And sometimes in the start, you need that motivation to keep going. A lot of times we talk about, it's not really about motivation and like just about discipline, being habit, having the habit, whatever, do it when you don't feel like it. Like it's easy to say that because for a lot of us, we are on the other side of the fence. But if you're starting off on the opposite side of the fence, use all the motivation you need. So make sure you have somebody to be accountable to, join like a run club, join like a group, a community, whatever it is. Go to a gym, sign up, ask most gyms will give you like a free trial or whatever it is, right? Like go in there and sign up for that. It's okay to put a little bit of money on it as well. Just kind of get that kick there, get somebody to get you started. You need the motivation to be extrinsic first to generate it. And then once you do it often enough, you see the results, it slowly morphs from an extrinsic motivation to an intrinsic one. Yeah. So even though we're giving you all these low-hanging fruit stuff, like if you can use that to motivate yourself and say like, hey, I have a huge purpose in wanting to change my body, great, use that. But I do think it's also worthwhile to take this understanding of like, hey, even the simplest things can help, and then go and take a bigger step, right? And then go and invest in yourself in that sense. Put yourself in that situation where you just can't fail, because you have no choice but to keep going.
And I think that's an episode that we're probably going to do in the future as well, is setting your environment for success. Creating your environment, the right environment for you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
But it also, and I can't agree with you any more than on what you've said there. It reminds me of the one that says like chopping a tree takes many small hits. It's like very few people can chop down a tree in one whack. But when you come and you chip away, chip
I'm
away,
not sure
chip
there's
away, chip
anybody
away.
that can chop down a tree in one whack.
I don't know.
Unless it's
Maybe
a small tree, right? Unless it's a
perhaps.
really small,
Yeah.
skinny tree, and you have like the sharpest, I don't know, axe or something. Even then, also, look, it just sounds
Yeah.
not
I
doable.
mean, this is just a saying, obviously. If the people actually did it one day, I don't know. But
Yeah.
it all takes that chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. And it's the same kind of thing when you're reaching your goals. You take each step at a time. You don't just jump up a flight of stairs each time
Yeah.
for each floor, but you climb those stairs one step at a time. And once you reach the first floor, you celebrate that win. You climb the step to the next floor, you celebrate that win. And I find the celebration of the wins is just as important as sticking the consistency to stick through, because that also helps with that intrinsic motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fantastic. Like that's the best way to kind of put it, really. That slow chipping away at things is what leads to the biggest overnight changes, so to speak.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the exercise component that we're looking at when you're dealing with insulin resistance. Now we
Yep.
get to the one that most people always go to first. And that
Mm.
is, what can you eat? What are healthy eating habits to improve this?
We did a whole episode on this magical thing that really helps with insulin sensitivity, and that's fiber. Get
Yes,
as
we did.
much fiber as you can in. Of course, like I mean, when I say as much, I'm just going off the basis of most people don't eat enough fiber in the first place.
Mm.
But yeah, start taking a bit more fiber, gradually increase it. And you can just go back and listen to our fiber episode.
That's the
Uh,
one just before this one.
that's the one before this one, yeah. So
Yeah.
some for more practical tips on that. But how that looks practically really is just lots more whole grains, right? Lots more fruits and veg. I think these two things really contribute a lot. So that's like the first thing that most immediate thing you can do for insulin sensitivity. And the reason why it works is just mainly because, look, it just slows down the overall what do you call it, the blood sugar levels, in terms of like slows down the rate at which they increase. So it then reduces a bit of that workload rate, that your a more manageable workload for your insulin to kind of do its thing. Yeah, if it's way too much at one shot, then obviously that's going to be a little bit more aggressive for your pancreas, right? Like and if you have particularly low insulin sensitivity, then that also contributes to all the nasty things we talked about, with you feeling pretty like low in energy and your pancreas being overworked and things like this. Yeah, so more fiber first and foremost. That's the first thing to do. Second thing is just now we mentioned this already, so eat plenty of like fruits and vegetables. But main reason why is not just the fiber component, but it's also the micronutrient component. So you have a lot of like vitamins, minerals. All these are like the the little lubricative elements that allow your body's metabolic processes to function well. So we're talking about the actual nutrient transport over into, the cells, right? And then how does your cell actually break it down and transport those smaller components to other parts of the body. Yeah, so this is where all the vitamins, minerals kind of come in. Minerals mostly because those are, again, the things that help keep, grease the wheels and keep things moving properly. So that's the other part to it as well.
Would
Yeah.
you have any go-tos with regards to fruits and vegetables that you would advise people, or is it like pretty much everything
Mm.
is good to go?
I mean, honestly, pretty much everything is good to go. Like, there's no real magical one fruit that you can eat that's going to give you all these benefits. I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm sure you've seen pages on the internet that tell you, oh, top 10 fruits and whatever.
Yeah.
You know, look, like any huge variety of fruits will really help. If you really want me to mention like specific winners, I would say, like, look, for me, the staples are always stuff like apples, grapes, any variety of berries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, even bananas are great too. The only issue is that they all have different levels of fiber content. They have different levels of, like, starch content as well, sugar content as well. So you have to find the one that kind of fits within your goals. Like, if
Mm.
I'm trying to cut weight, I eat a lot more berries and apples, for example. In fact, I eat like 3 apples a day or something. Right now, not right now as I'm recording this, I'm dieting. I eat about 3 apples a day, mainly just because, number one, they taste great. Number two, they have a decent amount of fiber, especially if you eat it with the skin. And they're just easy. They're just convenient for me. So, like, these are the things that you should be worried about. Like, how convenient is it to carry around if you need to bring your fruits around, right?
Yeah.
How easy it is for you to eat. Do you enjoy eating these fruits? I think these are the biggest things to consider, because for the most part, a large portion of fruits are pretty much free for all in that sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Except for, let me just quickly put this out, the durian. I I think others, like durians, and then maybe bananas. And the reason why I say bananas is because bananas
Potassium.
are pretty starchy, right? So they just have a decent amount of calories. If you're trying to cut weight, they might not be the best fruit option to go for. Maybe some other fruit option might be a slightly better choice, just to keep the calories a bit lower. Again, it's not a dramatic difference. So bananas are probably fine, but something like durian, right? Like durians, just the calories are pretty dense there, so they're pretty high. So
So for those
just
that don't know, durian is a fruit that's quite native to Southeast Asia, and it's
yeah,
like a
and it's very
staple.
it's very popular. It's not eaten so much as a fruit as it is dessert.
Yeah, or a national dish.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Is there any food that you would look to exclude?
Uh, I wouldn't say exclude, but I would say limit a little bit more, especially if you're a bit more worried about general insulin sensitivity, and that would be um okay, that would be if you have generally low insulin sensitivity. I would say you want to limit your processed food first and foremost. Okay, that are very high in sugar and not much else. Okay, so you're talking about things that are like sweets, for example, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much the main things, right? Like popsicles that are just pure sugar, whatever it is. These are the kind of foods that will generally spike your insulin quite aggressively. And again, remember, if you're a normal, healthy individual, spiking insulin is very normal. It's totally fine. It's not an issue. But if you have generally low insulin sensitivity and you are kind of like bordering on type 2 diabetic, you're overweight, you have a lot of excess fat, allowing the insulin to spike up too much can be a little bit more stressful on your pancreas again. Yeah. So we want to try to limit that happening as much as possible for the moment. Eventually, when you lose all the weight, you get back into a better stage, right? And your pancreas kind of come back up to a healthier function. You could eat, so-called, you could eat all the sweets that you want. I mean, of course, within reason, right? But you'll be fine,
Mm.
once you get back to like a healthier, manageable state. But yeah, I would say some of these like very high sugar processed stuff probably is not what you want. Now, a lot of times people immediately think like that high sugar processed food means even stuff like cakes and cupcakes and ice cream and things like this. But the truth is this, a lot of these other processed foods actually have a decent amount of fats in them. They don't actually spike your insulin as crazily as you would think. So that's something to take note. Usually what will spike it is and that's because the fat amounts kind of like slow down the uptake of glucose and the breakdown of the digestion and breakdown of the food in the first
Yeah.
place. So it actually slows down the uptake of glucose into the blood. The only issue is that it has a ton of calories in it, so that makes ultimately floods your blood with a lot of these extra food components, right? And then ultimately that gets stored as fat. So then that has its own issue
Yeah.
in and of itself.
For that, you can go listen to
But
one of
it's
our
not,
other episodes.
yeah, that's again another episode. But that's more to do with the excess consumption of calories versus the actual insulin sensitivity issue. Yeah, so I would say limit a lot of these like high sugar stuff. So high sugary drinks, things like this, you probably want to avoid. But the good news is that there's a hack for high sugary drinks. Instead of like regular sugary drinks, just drink those with, like they have artificial sweeteners in them. So like instead of a regular full sugared Coke, you just have a Diet Coke or Coke Zero. Or nowadays they have so many different variants as well. So just drink something that has like a zero sugar in it, like from an artificial sweetener, and you're good. You get all the benefits and taste of something that's sweet, but without all the downsides.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's one food I would say like limit it. Um, yeah, can't
What
think
about
of any
the
else.
the pure evil white rice?
That's fine. I think that's totally fine. Like no one's eating white rice on its own, right? Is your meal just white rice? Like that would then sure that would be a little bit more of a so-called higher starchy thing. But even then, also that still has a slow-ish uptake rate. If we talk about glycemic index, and I'm not sure if we might do an episode on glycemic index, but basically like people always say, oh, if the food's high GI or low GI, it really matters. Like yeah, you can use that as a way to kind of select foods. Like whole grains tend to be lower on the glycemic index scale,
Hmm.
and white rice tends to be higher. But the glycemic index kind of goes out the window when you combine it with other things. So let's
Right.
say if you eat white rice, but you're not just eating white rice, you're eating white rice with um,
Spinach.
spinach and braised pork.
Yeah.
All these components will help to slow down the uptake rate anyway.
But
So
this is
yeah.
the key point that, as I continue my TikTok education, this is the key point that all these glucose measure people always leave out. I just saw the video today where the guy's got his glucose meter on, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I now have a bowl of white rice here in front of me. Now let's see how this responds." And he eats it, and he's like, "Wow, look how high the number goes." And I'm like, "Of course." But who eats white rice on its own? You combine it with a vegetable. If you
Yeah,
can
with
combine
a
it with two
vegetable, some
vegetables, it's
meat.
going to come
Yeah,
even lower.
yeah,
So focus on that. Increase your vegetable intake.
yeah. So nobody really eats just white rice on its own,
Hmm.
right? I mean, if you do, then by all means, like, yeah, take note of this, then add some components to it. I'm not sure what kind of sad life you lead if you're only eating white rice for your meal, because that's not very balanced as well, right? Where's your protein coming from? Uh,
Right. So that's the other component as well. As well. When I speak to people about their sugar levels and things like that, I also ask, okay, how much protein are you actually taking in?
hmm,
Is your protein very low? Are you very high carbs? Or what's let's have a look at your diet. Because I always find is like when you're having issues like this, one of the first things I'll look to go to is have at least 30% of your daily intake come from protein.
hmm,
So the reason for that is obviously is because protein is a very satiated macro. So when you eat it, you feel full majority of the time. Then you
yeah.
combine that with some good fiber intake, and you're like good to go already. But you can eat as much white rice as you want, but as long as you have those components going already, you're not going
In
to see
fact,
too much issues.
in fact, if we're talking about like protein and the fiber component, if you actually prioritize that in your meal, meaning you eat that first, and then after that, you then proceed to eat like the other carbohydrate components, you find it kind of auto regulates the amount of the non-protein components that you'll eat. Yeah, so the amount of rice, the amount of carbs, so-called, that you eat, tends to go down just because you'll be feeling already fuller, and you'll be, you'll be satisfied from like the lesser amount that you're eating.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that I was just speaking to somebody yesterday, okra water. You know okras?
Yes. Like
So one of the
finger, right?
things
Like
that I was
that's what we call it.
yeah, I was advised by a dietitian who focuses on helping people reverse diabetes.
Yeah.
One of the things that they add in is they actually soak okras in water overnight, and then the next day you just consume that water. So it's
Okay.
not that we have to be clear here. It's not that okra is just some magic thing now that, wow, okay, if you drink this water, boom, there goes your sugars, all good. But what it is essentially is it's just coming back to Twain's point, is it's increasing your fiber intake, in this case, your soluble fiber intake. And it's an easy way for you to do so. Rather than having to eat and eat and eat more fiber, this is one of the ways you can just drink it through.
Wait, I'm not too familiar with okra water. Could you break it down for me? Like, what exactly do they do? How do you prepare it? Is it
Ah,
literally just like water that's been soaked in
cor-
okra?
yes. So you take okra, you chop it up into very thin slices, and then you leave it overnight in water. And the next day, when you want to drink it, you can either remove the okra like that and just
Hmm.
drink it, or for some people, what they'll do is they'll mash up even those pieces there and they'll drink those in the water.
Okay. My immediate thoughts on these are, those are two very different effects that you get if you're drinking up the water with the okra, and if you are just drinking the okra water itself. I suppose if you drink the okra water, like what okra generally has are certain enzymatic components to it that can help with, supposedly it's more to do with digestion. So okra itself, in terms of research wise, like they use it for diabetic treatments mostly just because you get a ton of good fiber in there, and
Mm,
because of the enzymatic components in the okra, it's actually good for the digestive health as well. But the thing that impacts the insulin side, or I mean the insulin sensitivity side of things, is going to be the fiber component.
correct.
But I don't think, I mean, like just listening to the description of it, I don't think the okra water does very much for insulin sensitivity itself. It probably
Uh,
does a lot more for the digestive component. But I think if you eat the okra as well, you get the fiber component that helps with that.
so it's
Yeah.
all about the fiber components, really, is what you're actually going after.
I
It's
mean, this
just
is
it's
to my
another
knowledge, this
easier
is,
way of taking it in, and it's not a case of like, as I said, it's not a case of like this is a magical juice that you're going to drink and everything's just going to be okay.
yeah,
But it's just another tool that you have in your chest that you can
yeah.
use to increase your fiber intake for the day. Like the other
I'm
one that
just,
we also use, my wife and I, is we put chia seeds inside
yeah.
water.
Oh, I mean, those are fine. Those are
And
great.
then that one
Uh,
we also drink throughout the day because
yeah,
like you can go back to the previous episode that we did where we spoke about fiber, and this is probably the most under, how should we say, consumed uh component of the diet is fiber, where
yeah.
we're supposed to get about 25 grams per day. Majority of us are getting 5 grams per day. And so these are all just like sort of like little cheats that we use to increase our fiber intake. None of them is a magical drink or a magical component on its own.
Yeah.
But they're all adding to this thing that we're all deficient in. And that thing that we're deficient in is fiber.
Fiber component, yeah. No, I'm just, the funny thing is because when you mention it, I'm just thinking like chopped up okra in water, you soaked overnight. That sounds terrible to me, like in terms of taste. I'd rather just take the okra and fry it up, chop it up, fry it up, and then just eat it. Like I'm just thinking like it doesn't sound like an easy way to take down okra.
Yeah. If I'm honest, I've
Um,
not drunk it myself. This is just the advice that I got from the dietitian.
I
Uh,
see, I see.
but so
That's
I
funny,
stick to
man.
the chia seeds. The chia seeds at least has
That
no
is funny.
taste.
Yes, yes, I agree with you 100% on the chia seeds. At least the chia seeds, number one, they don't have a taste. They actually have a very funny, like nice texture to it. It's like, when you go and get bubble tea and then you order the what's the tapo eggs, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of like that same thing. Except the tapo eggs are, I'm not even sure what the tapo eggs are made from. I think it's like tapioca seeds or something like that, I
I have
believe.
no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, anyway, fiber, right? That's
Yeah.
the main thing. That
So
especially if you're worried about insulin sensitivity, fiber and limiting like very high sugar only types of foods.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
would recommend anybody listening to this that if any of this has struck a chord with you, do go back and listen to our episode on fiber where we do make a much deeper dive as to the benefits on fiber and how you can implement that and increase your fiber intake in practical ways.
Yeah, man.
And that's episode 17, I think it is.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that also,
Wow. I realized we've done quite a decent number of episodes already. 17. Jeez.
all right. So that's also a good way to lead into a question. Another question is that a person has heard about supplements that claim to improve insulin sensitivity.
Yep.
And if there are such things, what would you recommend?
Yeah, there are none. I'm sorry. Like there's no substantial research on any of the supplements that would say that they are specific towards insulin sensitivity. Um, I would say the easiest thing you can do just to make sure your bases are covered is take a multivitamin. Because as you mentioned earlier, right, the minerals, the vitamins and minerals and the antioxidant components to the fruits and vegetables are really what helps with like some of that metabolic processes, right? Especially nutrient transport in the body. So taking a multivitamin will already kind of solve a lot of that. And then there's all the other basic health supplements where fish oils and your what else is there? Yeah, actually I think fish oils that's about it, right? Like these are the ones that all these ones that I'm mentioning have like the strongest substantial research on them. There's other things you could possibly take like additional, extra like magnesium, again to help with some of these metabolic processes. A lot of it's to do with the nervous system itself, but do you actually need it is a question,
Hmm.
and the only way you know if you need it is if you go and take a blood test to check if you actually have a deficiency. Otherwise, don't waste your money. Just use the tactics we just express in this podcast, right? In this episode, and just make sure you get a multivitamin and you're good.
And the fish oil.
Yeah. In
Okay.
fact, if you want to talk about supplements, I would say like, look, if you are not getting enough protein in, hey, you want to make it easier, get a protein supplement. Some sort of protein powder that doesn't give you bloating or anything, and you're good.
Okay. So I think that will probably wrap it up there.
Hmm.
So for our discussion on insulin sensitivity and fitness over 40. But I think I would just say is remember even small changes in your exercise routine can significantly improve your insulin sensitivity and overall health. And so the key for that is to find your activities you enjoy that and can fit into your current lifestyle. And also don't be afraid to start slow and then you gradually increase the intensity and duration of your workouts as you get stronger. And remember that if you're new to exercise, please do consult with your doctor before you begin any workout, so that they can ensure that you are doing a safe and effective plan. Do
Yeah.
you have anything
I
else?
reckon most, yeah, I reckon most doctors would tell you like if you are really bordering on lifestyle diabetes and having because if you have insulin sensitivity issues, you're likely the biggest indication towards that is you're pre-diabetic, right?
Hmm.
So your doctor is probably going to tell you go and exercise more anyway. But on that note as well, I want to say, and I want to reemphasize that the resistance training component will actually help you a lot, especially if you are somebody that's a bit more overweight. Body weight exercises might actually be even more challenging. Body weight exercises are easy for people to pick up if you're not superly overweight, just because you can still move yourself around because you will have, it's not a lot of weight to move, right?
Hmm.
But if you are pretty overweight, like your BMI is 28, 29, maybe even 30 plus, then body weight exercise might actually not be the easiest entry point for you. In fact, lifting weights might be the easiest entry point for you because you can manage the amount of weights that you lift and then you can gradually increase it from there. So that's something to consider. But I do want to emphasize that the resistance component is that is literally that one thing that can really help with the insulin sensitivity load component of things, right? So relieving that load of the pancreas to produce more insulin, right? Through the resistance exercise component. So that one's very, very important. That's why they're getting type 1 diabetics to actually start doing a lot of weight training and stuff to manage their blood glucose. So don't sleep on that, man, you know, or rather go and do your exercise and then sleep. Yeah. To get
Because we
your
have an
rest.
episode. We have an episode on that too, right?
Oh
Where
man, we
was
are
it?
back. We are back
Episode
linking
11: Recovery and Rest.
yeah, we are back linking everything. But that also just shows just how much like a lot of these things are pretty simple. They're just hard to put into practice because different people have different lifestyles, you know.
Yeah.
The core tenets and the principles are not very different across a lot of scenarios. But how you apply them, that changes dramatically.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's it. That's my final 2 cents or 4 cents or however many cents that shall be.
Awesome. All right. So thanks again for tuning in today on this episode. If you found it useful, do share it with your friends, your family, and see if they can get any benefit from it. Other than that, I hope this episode has empowered you to take charge of your fitness and health. And then until next time, stay safe and stay moving.
Well said. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Twain. See you next week.
See you guys.